A very good morning, students. Today we are going to study tragedy. What is tragedy? First of all, as far as common understanding of tragedy is concerned, you can go through several movies and theaters where you can find the stories having a sorrowful end are known as tragedies. So the term tragedy is derived from Greek word tragedia, which means song of goats. Song of goats means in old Greek theatre, performers used to wear goat skin costume to represent satire. So this shifted to the current term tragedy, and there are several definitions from the very classical period to the modern period. So as far as Aristotle is concerned and Aristotle's Poetics is concerned, he has elaborately defined the term tragedy in a very beautiful way, which presents each and every aspects of tragedy. So the definition by Aristotle is: a tragedy is the imitation of an action that is serious and also as action that is serious and also as having magnitude, complete in its sense, in appropriate and pleasurable language, in a dramatic rather than narrative form, with incidents arousing pity and fear, whereby to accomplish a catharsis or these emotions. So this was a definition which was given by Aristotle in his work Poetics. Let's talk about today's definition. Today's definition is a little bit changed because Aristotle talked about unities. There were number rules and regulations that he laid for a complete package of tragedy. But in today's time, people cannot follow all the rules and regulations. So romantic tragedy, the concept of romantic tragedy is a little bit different from Aristotelian concept of tragedy. In today's definition, tragedy is a serious play or drama typically dealing with problems of central character, leading to an unhappy or disastrous ending brought on, as in ancient drama, but fate and tragic flaw in his character, or in modern drama, usually by moral weakness, psychological maladjustment, or social pressure. So basically, the modern tragedy deals with a kind of tragic flaw, which is nothing but the fault of the central character or the protagonist itself. There are, as for now, if we talk about Shakespearean tragedy, there are a few elements that we should understand properly. Now these elements are, the first one is the tragic hero, second one is there will be a kind of a struggle between good and evil, the third one will be hamartia, the fourth one tragic waste, then external conflict, then the internal conflict, catharsis, the supernatural elements in the play, and the comic relief. So we will understand each and every elements point wise. First thing, tragic hero means complete tragedy. Shakespearean tragedy will be a story of a tragic hero, means a hero who will start from a very prominent position, and sometimes he becomes, as far as you take the example of Macbeth, he is the representative of the complete army, then he becomes the king, and then he falls from the kingship and he ultimately dies. The second thing is a struggle between good and evil. Basically, if we talk about Shakespearean tragedy, the tragic hero is a good man, a man of good character, a good will. So there will be a kind of dilemma or a kind of struggle between good and evil. The outside world where there is a lot of evil, and the inside of the character of the tragic hero, there will be a conflict, there will be a struggle. Hamartia. What is hamartia then? It's a fatal character flaw of tragic hero. What is the character flaw? Means there will be a flaw, there will be a kind of shortcoming in the very character of the protagonist. So as far as Macbeth is concerned, Shakespearean Macbeth is concerned, there greed is this hamartia. This is greed which motivates him to do all the wrongs which he has gone through. Tragic waste. What is tragic waste? Not only the central character or the protagonist or the person who commits all the mistakes will die or will suffer. Rather, there will be number of people who will suffer with the central character. So this is known as tragic waste. Next comes the conflict. So there are two kinds of conflict. The one is external conflict and the other one is internal conflict. So the external conflict is will be related to the outer world, where protagonist will have a kind of dilemma or a kind of conflict or struggle with the outer world. Like as far as the case of Macbeth is concerned, Macbeth has a conflict with the outer army. The other people, like the witches are there, the Lady Macbeth is there, or other people are there from whom he wants to snatch a throne. And internal conflict means there is always a good man inside Macbeth's character, and there is a struggle between goodness and badness, means his inner self, which is actually good, always has a conflict with its badness. Badness means the hamartia, the tragic flaw. There is always a struggle between the bad character of his own and the goodness of his own. So his good character always stops him to commit mistakes, but there is greed, that is tragic flaw in the character of Macbeth. So there is always a conflict in between. Now the catharsis. Catharsis is the release of audience's emotions through empathy. Release of audience's emotions means each and every audience which is in the chair to watch the play will establish a kind of identification with the character. So in the end of the play, they will always develop some pity, some fear, some empathy for the protagonist. So this is known as catharsis. And next point, a very important feature of Shakespearean plays is supernatural element. So as far as Macbeth is concerned, there are supernatural elements. There are the uses of three witches. The very first scene of the play begins with the supernatural elements of witches, where they say that fair is foul and foul is fair, hover through the fog and fill the air. They talk about something good is going to happen, all good is going to be bad, and all bad will look good, look something very good. So there is a kind of supernatural element in each and every tragedy, especially written by Shakespeare. So the very first scene, the introduction begins with the introduction of supernatural elements. The last but not the least is the comic relief. This is only Shakespeare who was the champion of such kind of element, that he has sometimes used the sections in his plays which are there to generate a comedy, a sense of comedy, just to create a kind of relief so that audience's emotions are saved to be hampered. So they are time to time there are uses of comic reliefs, so the audiences enjoy it. At the moment they are full of the sorrow, full of the tears, full of the pain. The moment brings a kind of comic relief. There will be some elements of comedy so that they could return back to the real world. So this was all about the elements of the Shakespearean tragedy. So these are all the 7 most important elements which you can find in Shakespearean tragedy, and you have to study. So this was all about Shakespearean tragedy. Today you understood what is tragedy. You got got a simple understanding of Aristotelian definition of tragedy. Secondly, you understood what is tragedy in its modern sense, and then you understood how Shakespeare is established as a writer of tragedy, 4 tragedies of such a great eminence, and what are the major elements of his tragedies. Thank you.